Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here this morning. My name is Legislator Viviana Russell, and we are unveiling the Nassau County Anti-Human Trafficking Prevention and Victim Prevention Act. Comprehensive legislation designed to make Nassau County a much harder place to traffic and be a human being, and a much safer place for survivors to get help. First, I want to thank my Democratic colleagues from the legislature that are here, who all joined me in co-sponsoring this legislation, and a special thank you to Wayne Wink, our counsel, for his invaluable help with this legislation. I also want to thank Holly Nato, Director of Advocacy and Engagement at Three Strands Global Foundation, for being here with us today. Holly is not only a survivor of human trafficking, but a nationally recognized advocate and leader who has taken an unimaginably difficult experience and turned it into a mission to protect others. We are incredibly grateful to have you here today, and thank you for your perspective. And thank you to the advocates, members of law enforcement, government, community partners, members of the press, and everyone else who continues to work to bring attention to human trafficking and support the people who survive it. So earlier this year, Nassau County took an important step by passing legislation aimed at combating human trafficking in hotels and motels. We recognize that trafficking exploits short-term lodging, and we put stronger safeguards in place to make it more difficult. But trafficking does not exist only in that kind of building. Today, we are taking the next step. We're proposing major expansions to the law to address another part of this problem that has been operating in plain sight for far too long: illicit massage establishments. Recent reporting from Newsday has helped expose just how significant this problem has become here on Long Island. Police and local officials have raided at least 231 spas in Nassau and Suffolk County over the last 5 years. At least 85 of them were raided twice or more. And the investigation found Long Island has become one of the most active fronts in what is estimated to be roughly $500 million a year illicit massage industry statewide. Those numbers tell us something very clearly. Raiding that same storefront over and over again is just not enough. For far too long, too much of our response to trafficking has focused on the person with the least power. The woman being exploited gets arrested, the storefront gets raided, and then too often, the people running the operation, enabling it, and knowingly providing the location simply disappear into the background. The victim should not be the easiest person in the room to punish. Human trafficking is an organized operation. Somebody recruits somebody manages the business, somebody controls the location, and somebody benefits from the exploitation. Our laws need to recognize the entire operation, not just the person trapped in the bottom of it. So what does this massage establishment provision do? That is what amending it is designed to address. Under our proposal, massage establishments would have to maintain all required state licensing and permits. They would have to maintain employee payroll and records available for law enforcement inspection. Sleeping accommodations and overnight occupancy would be prohibited, and Nassau County Consumer Affairs would have authority to conduct inspections for compliance. Establishments could not knowingly permit coercion, forced labor, commercial sexual activity, or trafficking on their premises. We believe these provisions would represent one of the most comprehensive local efforts in New York State to regulate massage establishments and part of the fight against human trafficking. The idea is straightforward. Don't just respond after exploitation happens. Put safeguards in place to make these operations harder to establish and harder to hide. And here's another part of this legislation. The penalties have to mean something. They can no longer just be a course of doing business. If the consequences are small enough that illegal operations can simply treat the fines as another cost of doing their business, then the fine just isn't working. You cannot deter a lucrative illegal enterprise with a penalty that can simply be penciled into the overhead. Under this legislation, violations would constitute a criminal violation. A first conviction could carry a fine of $1,000 to $10,000. A second violation could carry a fine from $10,000 to $25,000. And a third conviction within 5 years would carry a $25,000 fine, And every day that that violation continues can constitute a separate offense. That's important because the message should not be get caught, pay a fine, reopen tomorrow. The message should be if you continue to break the law, the consequences continue to get more serious. And we're not just stopping with a ticket. The county could also pursue civil penalties, suspension or revocation of licenses and permits, injunctions, nuisance abatement, ultimately closing the premises and repeated users for unlawful trafficking activity. The legislation also addresses property owners, operators, and businesses that knowingly facilitate trafficking and repeated violations. When the same location is repeatedly connected to exploitation, we cannot just hear, "I didn't know," for the third and fourth time and consider the matter closed. At some point, accountability has to extend beyond the person being exploited. If you knowingly enable human trafficking, Nassau County should have meaningful tools to hold you accountable. And in addition, we're providing support for our survivors. We'll also be able to help survivors because closing a legal operation does not magically repair the life of the person who was exploited inside of it. A survivor may need emergency housing, counseling, transportation, legal services, workforce development, language assistance, and the list goes on. That is why this legislation creates Human Trafficking Victim Assistance Fund. And here's the part that I think is especially important. The money collected through the penalties would help fund services for victims. So you talk about a full circle moment. There is a basic fairness in that. Money collected from violations of our anti-trafficking laws would help the very people this law was intended to protect. We shouldn't simply ask, how do we shut this business down? We also have to ask, what happens to the survivor tomorrow morning? We are also establishing a Nassau County Human Trafficking Response Working Group that would bring together law enforcement, consumer affairs, social services, the district attorney's office, health professionals, educators, victim services providers, and survivor advocates. Because human trafficking crosses agency lines and jurisdictional lines. Our response needs to cross those lines too. And I want to emphasize that this should not be a partisan issue. There is no Democratic victim of human trafficking. There is no Republican victim of human trafficking. There are human beings who need our protection. We believe this is a strong legislation, but we also are open to constructive suggestions. We are open to amendments. If someone has an idea that makes this law stronger, bring it to the table. We're here to listen. What we're asking is that this legislation be allowed to come before committee on September 14th so that we can have the discussion publicly and move this process forward. Public safety, protecting vulnerable people, and holding bad actors accountable should be principles of all of us that all of us can agree on. Our goal is simple: make Nassau County a harder place to traffic human beings and a safer place to survive trafficking. And now, I want to move our conversation from legislation to an actual real-life story. Today we have here with us Holly Nadel, standing with us. She is a Director of Advocacy and Engagement at Three Strands Global Foundation, a survivor of human trafficking, a leader in national fight to prevent trafficking and protect survivors, and also a very big help in crafting this legislation. Thank you so much, Holly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to Legislator Russell for the invitation to be here today and for her leadership, and to all of you for co-sponsoring this critical piece of legislation. I'm thrilled to be a part of this introduction of the Nassau County Anti-Human Trafficking Prevention and Victim Protection Act. As mentioned, my name is Holly Nadel. I'm a human trafficking survivor, a policy advocate, and the Director of Advocacy and Engagement at Three Strands Global Foundation, where I focus on survivor-centered policy and prevention education. Human trafficking is not someone else's problem. It's happening right here in our own backyards. I was born and raised in Nassau County, and no matter where life has taken me, this will always be my home. So it is personal for me to prevent and combat trafficking here, along with around the country. Specifically today, I want to voice my support for human trafficking prevention education to be required for employees of hotels and massage establishments. Here's something I wish more people understood. Trafficking is not a one-size-fits-all issue. I know this because I lived it. I was trafficked for 8 years across 11 states. My exploitation included forced criminality, financial exploitation, labor trafficking, domestic servitude, and commercial sexual exploitation. People saw pieces of what was happening to me, but they didn't understand what they were seeing. This is why this bill matters. A hotel employee may see someone who appears frightened or controlled. A housekeeper may notice that someone is being monitored. An employee at a massage establishment may recognize that a worker is isolated or unable to leave. Sometimes the difference between a victim being missed and being recognized is not a lack of compassion, it's a lack of training. At Three Strands Global Foundation, our Protect Prevention program recently received an evidence-based designation. After training, staff who could identify likely perpetrators increased from 22% to 86%, and knowledge of reporting procedures increased from 49% to 99%. Those numbers matter to me as a survivor because they mean that the next person in this situation, like mine, might encounter someone who recognizes the signs. And just to clarify, this bill does not ask hotel clerks or massage therapists to become the law enforcement. It asks them to know the signs and to know what to do when something doesn't look right, without putting the individual at greater risk. We cannot control when exploitation begins, but we can make sure that our community is prepared to recognize it sooner. I urge the legislature to pass this bill, and I urge every establishment in the county to start training their staff today. Thank you.
And now I'd like to have some comments from our legislator, Deborah Millet.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Legislator Russell for putting this very important piece of legislation together. Holly, I want to thank you for coming here and sharing your story. I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. So your bravery is truly inspiring.
Thank you.
We recently in the legislature passed the legislation for hotels. This is the next natural progression to include the massage parlors. We read about it all the time. We hear about it all the time, about the crime, the sex trafficking that goes on there. And it only makes sense. It's logical that we should take this up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As a social worker, I also want to point out it's not enough to just have these laws in place, but we have to have the ability to prosecute them, to help people within our county. So I just want to bring up again that we have recently lost a lot of employees through our retirement incentive, and we need to backfill our detectives so that they can help find and bring to prosecution these establishments. And then in the Department of Social Services, we need to have the correct number of workers there to make sure that our victims are getting the help that they need. So once again, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Legislator Russell.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Legislator Arnie Drucker, and I just want to thank Legislator Russell and the entire team for putting this together. It's extremely gratifying. It's so important. You know, sexual human trafficking is the lowest form of aberrant human behavior you could ever imagine. And the fact that it is occurring right under our very noses here in Nassau County is shocking and appalling, but it's something that we can now address in a very meaningful way. The purveyors of this disgusting trade need to be held accountable in a very definitive and punitive way that's going to eradicate this here in Nassau County. And this bill gives teeth to that. We are taking meaningful steps here, and I really think that it's absolutely necessary and appropriate that this bill get passed right away. Shame on a Republican majority if they don't pass this summarily, because it's that important in our county. And I want to thank again Legislator Russell and our entire team for putting this together.
Thank you. Thank you again to my colleagues in government, Wayne Wink, our counsel, to Holly, thank you so very much, and all those who are in support of this bill. Again, it's not a political bill, it's just a bill that needs to get passed for humanity here in Nassau County. Any questions?